Hi, everybody. Welcome to Leading for Life Stories, Season 2. My name is Bob Judson, and I'm your host for this podcast, and I'm absolutely delighted to have you here joining me. Thanks very much, and I really hope you enjoy what follows. Welcome back, everyone. My guest this week is Hardeep Dhanjal. Hardeep is a motivational speaker based in Denmark, lives in Denmark full-time, and he's got the most fascinating backstory, which he will go into some detail on in the podcast, so I won't elaborate on it here. We met when I was delivering some work for Deloitte Denmark, actually, as part of work I do with KWC Global, another company I work for quite regularly. And he was the motivational speaker at the beginning of the session that we were subsequently then facilitating. And I was massively impressed by everything I heard. I thought he was a fantastic, genuinely inspirational speaker, and his story is really something. And I thought, therefore, it'd be really great to get him on the podcast. He was delighted to join, and I'm really pleased he did. And we had a super conversation because we're in similar spaces, I suppose, in terms of the leadership work we do and so on. And therefore, we had a lot to talk about. And I hope you enjoy it just as much as I did. And here we go. Hardeep, welcome. Thank you so much for joining me on the podcast. It's really great to have you here. And I'm looking forward to what I think will be a fantastic conversation.
Thank you so much, Bob, for the invitation. Thank you.
No, absolute pleasure. I mean, you've got a fascinating life story. I've been fortunate enough to hear some of it when I've heard you speaking, but obviously my listeners haven't heard that, or a lot of them won't have done anyway. Could you, to get us started, just give us a summary of that journey so far?
Yes, absolutely. And before I start, I would just like to say to you, Bob, that thank you so much. I'm very honored to be a guest here in your podcast. And of course, I've read up on you and your story and your life and what you've achieved. And I'm very honored and also impressed by what you've achieved. So I just want to start off by saying that.
That's really kind. Thank you very much. No, I mean, I'm very privileged to have the guests I have, including you. So no, I'm grateful to you as well. Thanks.
Thank you. But yes, first of all, I'm located in Denmark, in Copenhagen, Denmark. And I am born out of a family that immigrated from India. And what happened when I was a child was that I was not able to live up to my parents' expectations. Coming to Denmark as immigrants, my family was hoping that I would be able to take advantage of all the opportunities that this country would present to me, such as education and so forth. But unfortunately, I was not doing good in school. I did not feel like I would live up to my parents' expectations, especially my father. And my father, he was a very strict man. Now he's a kind man and he's become a grandfather. But back then he was very strict, and he would not only express his disappointments with me with words, he would also be physical with me quite often. And also on top of that, I did not feel like I fit into society, because being an immigrant in Denmark, there's been a very, how can you say, uncomfortable tone and opinion about immigrants. So I never felt like I fit into society. So not being good in school, not being able to live up to my father's expectations, not feeling that I was a part of society was very difficult for me. But I knew at that time that I had to find something in life that would be so important to me, that would make me accelerate, that would make me take my life to a higher level. So I was looking for a vision, a deeper meaning for me. What is it that I wanted to do with my life? And coming from an Indian family, you know, what's expected from you is that you become an engineer or a doctor or a professor or something, but I was not able to live up to those expectations. So I decided to figure out what is it that I wanted to do. And Bob, I know you're sitting down, and that's a good thing, because I'm going to tell you what I decided to become. I decided to become a professional rapper, you know, like Tupac and all these guys. And what I discovered was that in India, where my parents had immigrated from, there's over now 1.4 billion people, but back then 1.3. And I discovered that there had never been a rapper in the world who had gotten a record deal in India. Wow. So that became my vision. That became my dream. And I told myself, I'm going to dedicate my life to making this dream become reality. And I committed my life to this. I dedicated every day to this dream. And it took me 12 years, and I was fortunate to meet other musicians who had a lot of talent and the right mindset. And after 12 years of hard work, we actually became the first rappers in the world who got a record deal in India. And the album that we released in India made it to the #1 spot on the music charts.
Yeah, amazing.
Yeah, thank you. So and we actually received record deals in 13 different countries. And that, I know that sounds amazing, and it is amazing, but there's also a flip side to this story, which is that we were cheated off all the money. We were not paid a dime.
Oh, no.
No. Yeah. So that was very difficult for me. And what happened was that I became very sad and depressed. But can you imagine that I'm #1 in India, the homeland of my mother and father? I'm being played on MTV, if you remember that music channel.
Yeah.
They would play us 8 times a day in India. And every time they played us, the phone would ring in Denmark telling my parents, your son is on TV. And everybody's thinking that I'm living this incredible life, but I had no money. I was deeply depressed and sad. I had to find a job that I did not care much about because I had to make a living. And I became physically ill from the stress and depression. I got a bleeding stomach ulcer. I had other problems with my stomach and so forth due to stress. And it took me 3 years to get out of that because I was just so sad and depressed for 3 years. But I knew that what I needed to pick myself back up and come back to life and chase my fullest potential was that I would look for another vision, another dream that would make me become the person that I love being. So by taking some time and thinking and analyzing what I wanted to do, I discovered that I wanted to become an inspirational speaker. I wanted to inspire people. At that time, especially young people. This is about 12 years ago now. I wanted to inspire all the young kids that I saw on the streets because I knew how they felt. I was from the streets. And when I saw these kids, I said, you know what? I know how they feel. And I also know that they can get out of that situation. I just have to tell them how. And I wanted to do that. And I spoke to so many kids and students in Denmark. And I was also ambitious. I wanted to see how good could I become at becoming a speaker. So I also wanted to set a personal goal for myself, which was, could I become a speaker that would travel the world? And 12 years later, sitting with you here, we met in Copenhagen when you were there. You were working with Deloitte, I remember. And I was speaking there before you started your workshops with the consultants. And I've spoken to companies and people in over 30 countries now.
Yeah, and very inspirational you were, I have to say, when we met at that session, which is one of the reasons I thought it'd be a great conversation. I mean, it's a fascinating story with a happy ending, but obviously a lot of sad bits in the middle. I mean, just to unpack a few of those things, I'm very interested because my wife's Indian. Actually, she's my father and mother-in-law were first-generation immigrants to the UK from India and from the Punjab.
Yes.
And so I absolutely recognize that, doctor, lawyer, those kind of things, that the aspiration is there for Indian families. First thing on the parental side, I mean, how did they feel on both those elements of your journey, as it were? I mean, because clearly, you set yourself some pretty high goals and achieved both of them in terms of the music thing, notwithstanding the outcome of that, which we'll come back to in a second, maybe. But also then the speaking bit, which is both of those are tremendous accolades to you. I'm just wondering how that was for your parents. Did they eventually kind of come around to, oh yeah, he's done pretty good?
Yes. Thank the higher powers that they did come. And I want to tell you that there's a big difference between my father and my mother. My mother is a very spiritual woman. She's always been extremely supportive, always reminded me that I was worthy and capable, even though the society and the world was telling me I was not. My father's been very, very strict and tough, but both of them had doubt and did not really see that this was possible for me. But my mother knew that at least it kept me on a straight line, that I was not on the streets doing bad things. And I think she's always known, the thing that made my mother sad about my life at that time was that she knew I was not living up to my fullest potential. That was what hurt her the most. But when I then made it, in India, it was a very short time that we had this success. It lasted for maybe not even a year. We were like a one-time wonder kind of thing because we were just used by the record labels to make them fast money and throw us in the bin. So of course, when we made it to number one, my parents felt proud of me, and also as you know, probably with your wife, the Indian culture also, unfortunately, it's a lot of what are the other kids doing with their lives. They're comparing a lot, where in Denmark, it's not like that. But in Indian culture, it is. So finally, they felt our son is successful, and they didn't mention other kids at that time. But when I then was cheated and I came into this depression, I have to say that both my parents understood that what their number one goal was to take care of my health, mental health. I was at a point, Bob, where I didn't care if I was going to live another day.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah, this is the honest to God truth. You have to imagine being number one in one of the most populated countries. You are cheated from every penny. You can't even pay your bills. You're sitting in a job that you don't love while being number one in India. You know you're being cheated, and you are helpless. There's nothing you can do. And the mental state, I mean, at that time, I did not have the tools to deal with that pressure and that experience. And I went to a place of darkness, and I'm not saying that I would ever hurt myself, but I came to a place where I didn't care about myself.
Yeah, I can completely understand that. I mean, I think I really admire your, I guess, approach in terms of going forward from that. I quite often talk to people, not least when I'm facilitating training, about forks in the road. And kind of everyone has those. You have moments in life where do I go that way or do I go the other way? And going down one of those roads, sometimes, obviously you get partway down the road and you go, okay, this hasn't really worked. Maybe I should have gone down the other road. But I'm personally a big believer in I don't look back too much. I mean, I go, okay, it is what it is. If it's something I cannot now change and I've made that decision and I've got to live with it, then I just make the best of it. And that sounds exactly what you've done in terms of that, and in a much more extreme way. I mean, I've never faced anything quite that dramatic, fortunately, and I really feel for you because that must have been incredibly tough. But your mental approach and your mental strength to actually just put that behind you. Did you just completely put it behind you? Did you just go, yeah, okay, fine, there's nothing I can do about this and move on? Or did you pursue the record company, or how did you go with that?
In the beginning, because of my life experience, the feeling of being treated unjust, that feeling made me angry. I had a lot of anger and frustration, so I couldn't just move on right away. But also I was in a different place in my life. I was not the same man that I am today. So I didn't have the tools, but I had my mother. And my mother gave me the perspective that would be a great gift to me. It was all about perspective, because I'll tell you, some of the other band members, they've gone into alcoholism, drug abuse, and I don't blame them. I don't look at them as weak. I completely understand if you have no one to talk to, no one to help you see it from a different perspective, then of course you have to numb the pain.
Yeah, absolutely. No, the support structure is so important.
Of course. And my mother was my support, and my dad also showed that he cared. He really, truly showed that when he knew, okay, I cannot point my finger at my son. I have to help him now. So yeah, with that support system, but it took some time, and also because I was in my early 20s back then, and I had done nothing else but music, so I didn't have the understanding, and I was just a young, angry man. My whole life I was angry, so I continued. That was what I knew how to do, is to be angry at that time and upset. That was the tools I had. How do I express my frustration? I get angry, So it's the toolbox.
Totally understandable as well. I mean, given that sort of circumstances, well, why wouldn't that be the case? Absolutely. So I mean, I'm intrigued though, the journey from there into speaking. I mean, you mentioned obviously, and I completely get the let's try and inspire youngsters and not, kind of help them not to be in a place I was and all that sort of thing. Yeah. But how did you make that journey? Because that's not necessarily a straightforward journey, is it?
No, it was not. As I said, when I had the experience with the music and I was cheated, I was in a job that I did not like. It was a customer service job. And the company, I love customer service, and I love the gifts that what you can learn from working in customer service. But the company I worked for was not a popular company. So 90% of the calls was yelling at me and telling me I was a bad person. But I did have a boss, a leader who saw more in me than I did myself. He saw the potential in me, not just as a great employee, but also my potential as a human being. And one day he comes to me, this is 3 years after all this happened, and he says, Hardeep, I want to talk to you. And he said, I want you to know I know a lot of successful people, and they're very inspiring, but I've never met someone who is as inspiring as you. And he said, wow. I want to show you something. And he took his laptop and he showed me a clip from an American motivational speaker called Les Brown, an amazing speaker. I didn't know anything about motivational speaking or none of that. But when I saw that clip of Les Brown, I knew within 30 seconds, that's what I'm going to do. That's what I do. That's rapping in a different way. This is all the positive things from rap and all the stuff that I love. And I can inspire all these kids, and I know I can make this happen. So at that moment, it completely got me out of my old way of thinking, and it gave me hope. It gave me a vision. And that was the moment for me where I said, okay, because from music, I did learn how to be disciplined. I learned what it means to be dedicated and sacrifice, let go from things, even though you want to do certain things, but you have to let it go if you want to grow. So I knew all these decisions that I had to make. I understood it. And I said, I'm going to do that.
Fantastic to have a boss that was that kind of forward thinking and supportive as well. I mean, that's obviously not always the case. That's life's made on those kind of little things, isn't it? Where,
yes,
something like that happens and it just changes your whole perspective.
Absolutely. And I've been fortunate to have a few leaders, managers. A few of them have had that ability, and it's been very helpful.
Yeah, that's great. So you now had the vision. How did you turn the vision into reality?
Yes. Then I had the vision, but then I said, okay, I have some experience from becoming a musician. Maybe they cheated me for money, but they did not take away my ability to reach my goal. Mm-hmm. And from that journey, I had learned. So it's like reading a book. It's better than reading a book, is actually living it. And it really becomes a part of who you are. And when you don't live that type of life where you're dedicated, I got to be honest with you, I miss that if I don't have it. I feel like I'm not complete. So as soon as I saw it, I knew now I have to execute. Now I have to do the things that is needed for me to make this a reality, because the truth is the vision that you have is interested in how much do you want me? How much do you want me? How do you want this vision? How much do you want your vision to become reality? Are you willing to sacrifice and go through that process? And I knew that moment that I was willing to do that. I knew it would take time, and I knew it would take an extreme level of daily dedication. And I would have to use my courage. I did not like contacting customers or schools, but I had to pick up the phone and make those calls and write those emails and present myself, which was very uncomfortable in the beginning. But my vision told me you have to do it. You might not like doing it, but you have to. So from my experience from music, I used the same recipe, if you can call it that, in my journey towards becoming a speaker.
Yeah, nice. I know. And I think obviously, a lot of what you said is really useful to all sorts of walks of life for people setting out on careers and look at career changes as well, I think, where obviously they've got to turn around and make a break. What tips would you offer on that in terms of how you physically did? What did you do to get yourself from the point you've got a vision, you've got the capability in yourself, you've got the self-belief. how did the journey progress to getting yourself into a position where you're now? I mean, you're a globally active, well-renowned, very, very well-regarded international motivational speaker, which is a tremendous accolade to you. I mean, that didn't get there by accident. There's obviously there's some steps in there along the way, right? That I'd be really interested in those.
Yes. Physically. Now you said, what did I do physically, right? Was that
yeah.
So I come from an Indian culture. So my mother has always taught me to visualize. When you believe in something, you have to see it in your mind first. So what I would do every single day, I would wake up early and I would visualize. I'd put my hands together. I'd say to the higher powers, thank you for another day and another opportunity. And then I would visualize. I would see myself being where I wanted to be. I would see it so clear in my mind. It's kind of like if you're single and you want a girlfriend, and all you think about is having a girlfriend. And when you walk on the streets, all you see is couples. You don't notice anything else but the couples that are walking around. That's exactly how I felt. I made my mind first and foremost in the morning focus on what I wanted to achieve and who I needed to become, because that was the second question I then asked myself. After I visualized, I always reminded myself, who do I need to be today to become this person or make this goal a reality? And I knew that future version of myself was a man who would be courageous. He would be disciplined. He would have the ability to stay calm under pressure. He would adjust if it was needed. These different things, I would be aware of it. So my mind was the first thing that I had to teach. I had to actually teach my own mind who I needed to become. So I would truly within myself understand this is who. So being physically active, going to the gym, going for a run. And remember this, I didn't just go from a job to speaking. I was speaking while I had my job. So when I would come home after 8 hours of work, I would go to work at 8 o'clock in Denmark. Most of us go at 8 and come home. We're off at 4 mostly. Mm-hmm. So I would be home around 4:30. Then I would eat a little bit of food. Then I would go to the gym. Then for 1 or 2 hours every day, I would study speaking. I would watch videos. I would study the great American speakers. I did not study the local ones because I was aiming very high. So I wanted to study the great speakers of the world. And then I would even talk to my pictures on the wall. I would imagine that they were the public, the people listening to me. I would imagine the plants were people, and I would practice. And I wanted to discover my own form, my own style. I didn't want to copy them completely. I wanted to be me, but also learn from them. And what I loved about the other speakers, I wanted also to do if it fitted my character, if it felt good to me. So I would practice every day. Then I would cook my dinner. I was single at the time, so I also had maybe more time to be very focused. And then I would not go out and get drunk on Fridays and Saturdays because I was just very determined. I was just living that daily life every day.
Yeah, it's really interesting you talk about style and building your style. Again, it's one of the things I talk about quite a lot in leadership styles. Actually, we'll maybe come to that in just a second. I think if I look at myself, I have built my kind of leadership style, if you like, over years by looking at people who I respect and admire and like what they do and kind of shamelessly stealing things off them. Yeah. I go, right, I like that. I've got a jar of things I really like, and I've got a jar of other things which I've watched other people who are, in some instances I've worked with around who I just do not want to ever be that person. I don't want to do that thing. I don't want to see that in my teams or anything else. So I have those kind of two jars of stuff. Yeah. Which ultimately, has really helped me to shape what I do and the way I actually operate. And I think my advice to lots of people is I think that really works. I think you need to recognize that this is a journey that lasts a lifetime. You never are finished. You never complete the journey because inevitably you're still improving, you're still changing, you're still adapting. All the way through. So no, really, really interesting points. And on that style thing, I'm really interested in, So here we've got the young angry man who's had this horrible thing happen to him in the music industry, lost all your money. Now you're getting into a position where you want to be a motivational speaker, which clearly you've got to translate and take away some of that anger and get to a place where you now are, where you genuinely are. And again, having seen you, you really are very inspirational and bring the room to life. And it was very impressive to watch you light up a room of young Deloitte consultants as I was there as a facilitator for subsequent training with them. It made a big difference. So how have you physically adapted yourself and changed yourself, mindset shift, all those sorts of things to get you to where you are? What sort of conscious or unconscious changes have you seen in yourself over time, from starting that journey to where you are now?
Yeah. First of all, thank you so much for all your positive words regarding my.
Not at all. No, well deserved.
Thank you. But I think that what I learned later in life was that I had to observe myself. What is it that I'm doing that is good for me, makes me a better person, increases the chances of me going to where I want to be? And that whole observation of myself, to truly look at who I am without any fear. Because it's very painful to discover something about yourself that's not positive. So that was step number one, is to be honest with myself. What am I doing that's good for me? What am I doing that's not good for me? What's good for the people who listen to me? And I know you're also probably focused on this about your own life and leadership, to be authentic, to be me. I do come from a life of music, rap music and soul and all this. It's also rhythm is a part of me, and I don't show up. I don't know if you remember, but I'm wearing a t-shirt and a sneakers, and I feel very comfortable in that, and it's a part of me. And I had to be very courageous. Here I am, a kid who was not eligible to go to college. I was not eligible from high school. I got a piece of paper that says not eligible. And here I am speaking at universities and companies and so forth. But it took a lot of courage. I knew that I had to challenge myself. And looking at the people that I grew up with, I had not seen examples of people doing that before. So it was not something I came from. It's something I created. I became this person with no inspiration from anyone in my surroundings. So I had to challenge myself.
So you've made me think of something as you said that, because I remember when I was listening to you speak, that educational story, tell the piece around, getting to the point where you were given a not eligible certificate and how you translated that. I think that's just such a great story.
Yeah. In Denmark, we finish high school at the 10th grade. We can leave at 9th grade, but those who have a difficult time in school are offered an extra year. And I was one of those kids. So I took an extra year, so at the 10th grade. And when we left on the last day of school, we got our diplomas. And every student were standing there in a row, and we got our diplomas. And I'm looking at everybody. They're getting their diplomas. It's final. It's over. And my teacher comes to me, and he gives me my final diploma. And I'm looking at him with a smile because I made it. But then he gives me an extra piece of paper. And on that paper, it said, Hardeep is not eligible for college.
Wow. Talk about puncturing your balloon.
And I'll tell you what, it hurt me so much. It took out the last bit of confidence and self-worth that I had left in my system. And before that, my father was so strict that I'll remember this, that one time I got my report card from my teacher. And when I got home and showed my father the report card, he called up 3 of my classmates and told them to come to the apartment. And he told them to bring their report cards with them. So when they came over, he took their report cards out of their hands and he laid it on the table, 3 pieces of report cards. And then he took mine and he put it next to theirs. And my grades were so much lower than theirs. And he just looked at me like, you see? Can you see the difference? It destroyed me. So, and then I have to go home and tell my parents last day of school, well, I'm not eligible for college. and then standing and speaking at the University of Copenhagen, being a speaker at the University of Aarhus and other universities.
How did that feel? I mean, that's the bit I was getting to, really. I just think that is such a great story. I mean, I didn't go to university either. My kind of journey was, I went through here, we do a thing called A-levels. That's your kind of high school qualification, if you like. And then that should take you on and into university. And I'm like, okay, I'm getting pretty old now, but at the time that I was leaving school, about probably less than half of school leavers went to university, whereas now obviously it's a much, much higher percentage.
Okay.
But so I actually had a university scholarship to go with Air Force sponsorship to university, which would have been a really good thing. But then I spent too much time in the Air Cadets and didn't spend enough time concentrating on my exams, and ended up, I passed, but I didn't get particularly great grades. And I didn't have a second thought about it. I just went right, bang, going straight to the Air Force. And I rang the Air Force up and said, hey, can I come in direct entry instead of through university? Meant I joined at 18 instead of 21 or so. And frankly, I never ever looked back from that. So a different journey in terms of the way I got there, but sort of similar outcome. And I have to say, I've often talked now about I think university is very valuable for all sorts of reasons, and there's lots of really good things about it. But I think it sometimes gets overplayed, particularly the academic element of it gets overplayed, because you can't substitute experience for the time you potentially lose. And if you take too much time and you go and do a master's, then you do a doctorate, and if you want to be a professional academic, that's great, but not necessarily if you want to go and have a career doing the sort of stuff I did, where obviously that time really matters. And just for you, I mean, you go from not eligible for college to then actually being invited back as a speaker to inspire people at college. Yeah. How did that feel? That must be an amazing thing.
Amazing feeling. And I'll tell you, it's almost like I made it. That was the feeling I had, that I've made it in life.
Mm-hmm.
With all the obstacles I had, with all the experiences I had more reasons to not make it in life. I had way more reasons not to become a good person, but I did. And that was the feeling. I was actually in Reading in the UK, where I spoke at a elite school, and the principal, he asked me, Hardeep, would you pass out the diplomas to all the students and shake their hands? And I couldn't believe it. And I was shaking these kids' hands, and I was thinking to myself, while I'm smiling and saying congratulations, I was thinking, they should, it's unbelievable.
Did they know the story? Had you told them the story?
Yes, I told them, yes. And I made very sure to tell, that I told them my story. And because it's a part of the inspiration is also our life stories, as you tell me, part of yours. It's very inspirational to hear that, because the struggle, to overcome the struggle and the challenges of life is it's very inspiring, and it gives us hope.
Yeah, no, I think storytelling is really, really powerful in all the space, isn't it? It's and it gives, as you say, it gives genuine kind of experiences that people can hang on, as opposed to just theories, which are fine in themselves. But actually, if you back them up with some kind of genuine story that really is, it's a real life example, it does make a huge difference to that.
Yes, it does.
I like to talk about role models. I mean, you already talked about your boss when you're in the customer services business, and I can only imagine how sort of transformational that was. But have there been other role models for you that have helped you through to where you've got now?
Yes, absolutely. And my grandfather, probably the number one example I have of someone who's inspired me. He was a man living in New Delhi in India, and he was just a very, very dedicated, strong-minded, loving person. Towards me, at least. He was a great example of discipline, of courage, strength. And often when I walk out on stage and I feel the nerves and the fear, it feels like he's with me. I see him like he's telling me, okay, go out there and do your thing. You can do this. And so he's not been around for a long time, but he's in my mind a lot. And also my mother, who's been my number one supporter. And she's taught me the ability to understand life in ways I would not have done. Books could not have. I'm not a good reader, first of all, but she's just taught me how to manage this life and how to deal with it. And every time I talk to her and I have something that's on my mind that I need an answer to, I talk to her, and she's still able to, in the most simple form, not complicated, very simple, explain to me what she sees and how she understands it, and she gives me the tools and the words that I need for me to continue moving forward. So she's also someone, and I've had great leaders, also bosses or managers, but those people who's really with me in my mind have been like my mother and my grandfather. They've been incredible examples of the type of person I would like to become someday.
Yeah, nice. I love your grandfather helping you when you go out and dealing with challenges on stage. I mean, again, it's something that crops up a lot in and you'll know this from your wider work beyond speaking. You know, it's people getting nervous about presentations and talking to even relatively small rooms of people. You talk to huge rooms of people now. Yeah. I mean, it's stage fright. I often, the quote I use is Robbie Williams, you know, who has been very public about he suffers from stage fright. And I mean, this is a guy who sings to arenas of tens of thousands of people. And you kind of go, nah, how can that possibly be? But it was really interesting. You talked about nerves and so on. I mean that, and I guess from what you've said, that is a factor for you. So how do you manage that? How do you, beyond your grandfather, are there other sort of little coping strategies you have?
Yes. First and foremost, I believe in what I say. Mm-hmm. I think that's very important, because when I believe in what I say, I gain confidence from that, and the way I express what I want to say is comes out with conviction. There's no doubt in me with the things that I say, and I'm open to learning new things and seeing it from a different perspective. But in the moment when I say it, I believe it.
Sure.
And that helps me a lot. It calms me down. And I believe that it can give value to the people who are listening. So that also calms me down. And I'm not here for myself. I'm here to serve. So I look at it as I'm here to serve and help. And by me being able to help you, maybe you're also helping me, actually making me reflect on myself. Because if I didn't have you, I wouldn't have to challenge my own way of thinking. If I didn't have you, I wouldn't have to get out of my comfort zone, maybe, you know, or look at what is it that I believe is the truth? Is it really the truth? Because if it's not, I don't want to say it. You know, I have to really, and that gives me confidence. It calms me down. And of course, don't forget, I'm a rapper. You know, I've been on stage, I've been on the streets rapping. We would freestyle for free burgers at McDonald's. You know, before we would be in McDonald's rapping and we would get free burgers. So nice. I also have that with me. I just want to say that's also a part of the confidence, though. You know, okay, let me go out there and be me and be authentic. I think I would be nervous if you put on a suit and tie on me. Then maybe, because then I'm not me, like comfortable in, I know I would know that I was faking it in some sense. And I think that calms me down, that, hey, I'm here and this is who I am and I love myself. I'm proud of what I've done and I believe in what I'm saying. My message, I'm convinced that it can help you. And this is for you. And I'm not going to waste your time. I'm going to give you value now.
Nice. Really, really good. So I'm going to drag you backwards.
Yeah.
You know, I know we don't do backwards, but we're just look at, so if you were talking now to a school age Hardeep again, with all the challenges you had when you were at school and everything else, and with where you now look, what advice would you be giving to school age you?
I would say it's going to be okay. It's going to be all right. All the worries you have right now, they're not as big as you think right now at this moment. I would tell myself that no matter what happens, you are worthy. If you're successful in life, if you achieve all your dreams, or if you do not, if you get a high paid job or you not, whatever happens, you are worthy. And that's the number one thing I'm telling parents. Don't worry about your kids having high grades and stuff. That's not the number one thing. Make sure they know they're worthy, that they are loved, that they are important. And I would tell myself that now, that Hardeep, you might feel like crap right now, but you are freaking amazing. You are unique. You are a light. You are worthy. Don't ever forget that, because I needed to hear that. My mother told me, but that was maybe the only person. I would have loved if people told me that. And that's also why I still go to schools, you know, as much as I can, to go out there and tell them that and give them the message. because that's what I would have told my younger self.
Yeah, it's a great example. I think self-belief is such an important thing, isn't it? If you don't have that and that sort of self-worth element, that I mean, and you do need to feed on that from others. I mean, there's no doubt about it. You can, I think to a certain extent you can have it yourself in spite of others, but it doesn't, that makes it really hard, that journey. So no, I think that's a terrific example.
If I can just say that what I've learned now in my later years of life is that my worth now, I understand, is my love, because worth is who I am. What is it that I have within me, and what is the most valuable quality that a human being can have? It's love. And if I really feel that I have love within me for myself and for others, then I know that I have something valuable within me. So I know I'm worth something. I'm worthy. And it gives me self-worth to understand truly within myself that I have love within me. And when I have love within me, I am worthy. So now I'm even set free from other people's opinion about who I am or what I'm worth. I know myself, as long as there's love in this heart, I have worth within me, and then I'm worthy.
Yeah, no, that's great. That's terrific. But just before I'll come on to highs and lows and stuff, because I'd like to talk about that in it. But before that, just on your sort of speaking side, just give me a range of what you now do. I mean, you've mentioned schools quite a lot. I mean, I saw you obviously working for Deloitte. Where have you been and what have you done? How, where's the career taken you? We didn't really get to that point.
Yeah. Well, it started maybe with 70% schools and 30% businesses. Now it's probably 70% organizations, businesses, leadership, employees, and 30% schools and colleges. But with the companies, it's mostly leadership and employees, and it's about mindset and culture. It's about how do we create a strong culture within the team dynamics, and how do we empower the mind to deal with the obstacles and the pressure. Just as Deloitte, the consultants, of course, our focus was to strengthen. What they gave me as an assignment was to strengthen the culture and the mindset to deal with the pressure. Mm-hmm. And so these are like my focus areas, and it goes both in leadership and also in other areas.
We're going to come on and talk about some specific things a little bit later, but just I guess the good and the bad of this. I mean, are you seeing real strength in lots of people, and most of the time actually you're just reinforcing what's already really good culture? Or are you seeing in some places, whether it's schools or in businesses, some really challenging things?
The difference, let me start with the schools first. What I see with the challenges with the schools are the self-worth. It is the social media, the impact it has on the young people, that they go on social media and they look at all their friends going to parties and having the good life, not understanding that what they see on social media is just a percentage of reality, but they think that that's the whole reality for that person who they're following, or their schoolmates, and it hurts their self-worth, and it also hurts their ability to focus, because they're always trying to go to the next. The attention span is getting closer and shorter and shorter, and their ability to be disciplined and wanting to be great at something in life, whatever it might be, so that's what I see. And a lot of fear. They have a lot of, in Denmark, I don't know about the UK, but anxiety is a big, big thing here with the youngsters.
Yeah, it is here too, and it was one of the reasons I asked the question. Really, I think it's fascinating. I was at a presentation a little while ago where a chap I know really well was talking about he had been to a school event and was speaking at it, and one of the questions he got was, how do you manage your mental health when you're in the senior role that he was in? Mm-hmm. And this was from a kind of 14, 15-year-old. Yeah. And the thing he took away from it, he said, when I was that age, I didn't even think about mental health. It wasn't something that was, was on my radar at all, really. It was just, I'm just doing stuff. Whereas now I think it is a much, much bigger issue. And it sounds like you're seeing a lot of that as well.
Yeah. The thing about being perfect, because social media can make you look perfect, right? So you think, okay, I have to be perfect. That's more pressure, because perfect is not possible. It's constant growth, as you also said in the beginning. We keep growing. So I remind them of that, and it's very difficult for a lot of young people. And in regards to the companies and organizations that I visit, I do see a lot of people being controlled by doubt and fear. So now we have all the new AI, the technology is moving in such a rapid pace. Am I able to do that? Can I bring value to the company in the future? The fear of taking on responsibility, so because if I take responsibility for something, there's a chance that if I don't succeed, then someone else is going to point their fingers at me and blame me. What consequence is that going to be to me if I don't succeed? So this whole psychological security. So they cross their arms instead of being open. They are afraid of sharing ideas. Leadership also a lot under pressure. So they have a hard time working together with each other because they're so focused on their own assignments, because the fear of failing makes them so focused on their own thing. So they don't look up and look at each other and say, could we actually work together on this? Maybe someone has advice for me that I could use, but we don't even look at each other. We don't even ask each other, because if I asked you for advice, how would that make me look?
Yeah. It's fascinating on a number of levels, really. I recognize exactly what you're talking about. That whole thing where people are dealing with that kind of pressure. They're very reluctant to necessarily to fail. I mean, interestingly, when I was doing my coaching qualifications, one of the things that was said to me was, which I thought was a great quote from someone, said, "No failure, only feedback." Which I think is really useful. I mean, it's a very good way of looking at it as well, right? And actually, again, one of the things I did in the military a lot was I learned over time that you have to enable people and empower people and allow them to get things wrong and protect them when they get things wrong. If it's well-intentioned and they were doing the best they could, but it just didn't work out, then you need to provide a shield for them and then an umbrella over the top of them that stops them getting heat for that, and letting them grow so that they actually learn from those mistakes. Because if they don't do that and they're always under pressure that they've got to deliver a perfect outcome, guess what? It's not going to work. I mean, you have a very risk-averse organization that really doesn't move forward in the way you potentially want it to. And it's fascinating. Lots of common ground in there.
Yes, absolutely. That's also what I experienced. I also want to say the leader. Now you asked me about leaders who's inspired me, and the military leaders that I know, they're incredible. They are I don't know. I think it's the ability to stay calm under pressure, to analyze, to follow through on a plan. The military guys that I know that are in leadership positions, they all inspire me. So I also understand why you are good at what you do. It's I'm sure some of that experience you use today also.
Oh yeah, I would be the first to say I don't think every military leader is a great leader, but I think what the military does do extremely well, and one of the reasons I kind of have a job doing what I do, to be honest, is because the military trains people very well, and it gives people lots in leadership now, and it gives people also a lot of opportunity to practice leadership and in physically do it, because you have teams of people working for you, and it's also the first priority, whereas I think no corporate I've ever worked with or for does that. So when what they'll do is they'll hire people based on their experience, their qualifications, they'll promote them based on the delivery in the business. What they don't do is focus on developing them with tools, tips, techniques, skills to be a better leader. Some organizations do. I mean, I do a lot of work with Deloitte University, as it happens in Paris these days. And I think Deloitte are particularly good at this. They really do focus on it very well. Some other organizations do as well. But I've also worked with several organizations who their people have said to me, the trouble with this is that we get to a position where now building and running a team, and actually no one's given us any tools to do this.
Yes.
And that is a failing of the kind of corporate world, which the military does have. It has the luxury, I think, as well, of being able to, in budgetary terms, give you big courses and lots of training interventions that really help to take you to a place. I mean, I had through 35 years in the Air Force, I had a lot of things that went on that were enhancing my leadership skills, which is not realistic to look at that in the private sector. It's too big an overhead. Yeah. But at the same time, it could certainly be better in the private sector, and it does make a difference. We were talking about storytelling a minute ago. I mean, I quite often tell quite extreme stories. There's always a joke in some of the work I do where people talk about war stories in companies, and I say, well, I actually have war stories. And some of the stuff you do on operations in particular is pretty extreme, but at the same time, it does give you a different frame of reference, and then you kind of look at the world through a slightly different set of spectacles next time you're coming across something that isn't so extreme.
Yes, yes.
And that is definitely helpful.
Yeah, very interesting.
Highs and lows. I always talk about highs and lows with my guests. If you could do anything differently now to the way your career has turned out, I mean, you've clearly gone through these various chapters and it's been very, very successful. Is there anything you'd do differently, and why would you do it?
I wouldn't worry as much. That's but now again, that takes experience to understand. It's something for other people to say, don't worry, don't worry. But the experience of being in hard times and in doubt for a long time, and then overcoming that time in life gives you the knowledge and the wisdom that you need. So if I would have known not to worry as much, because I've always been very dedicated. I'm not from the military, but I believe I could have been a good soldier, or, I have certain qualities that I know I have in common with other people who's also achieved amazing things in life and stuff. So it's more because coming from a childhood where I was told that if you don't succeed, it's going to go completely bad. If you don't do good, it's going to be bad, because that's what my parents came from. If bad in India is real bad. You can ask your wife, and you probably know yourself that, you've seen maybe some of these poor people and stuff.
Yeah,
So,
I've been there.
So when my parents said, if you don't succeed, it's going to be very bad, that stuck with me. And still to this day, I have to remind myself, this is about growth. Growth is for, hopefully for the rest of my life. But I still have to remind me sometimes, because I'm also not only a speaker, I'm a father, I'm a husband. This is my company. I'm self-made. If I don't have business for, there could be something happening when COVID hit, or anything can happen. Now there's the election in the States, or there's inflation, or whatever it might be. It can maybe be of big consequence for my business. And that's why I also have to remind myself, okay, stay calm, Hardeep. Wake up in the morning, do your best. Don't let the panic overtake your thought process. Stay calm, it'll be okay. And even I live in Denmark, I have to remind myself that also, that worst case, it's not going to end up like in India. So reminding myself, I would have told myself as a young man, don't worry, don't be that afraid.
Yeah, that point about living in Denmark versus India, I think it's a great point. One of the things frustrates me a little bit sometimes when you in this country where people are going, oh, woe is me, life's terrible, all the rest of it. And actually, if you look the UK, Denmark would be very similar. If you look at the sort of wealth spectrum from very poor to very rich, yeah, fine, there is a spectrum and it's quite big. But if you go to somewhere like India, then that spectrum is just massive.
Yeah.
From the difference between the poorest person and the richest person. I mean, the rich are incredibly rich, and the poor they literally have nothing. And so, actually, when you get people who are kind of down and moaning about their life, and I love the expression. Actually, it's a first world problem. I think that's that's so true. Yeah. Quite often we're going, oh, okay, this is terrible, this is happening, and all the rest of it. But if you start genuinely zooming out and looking at stuff going on around the world, then you maybe get a slightly different perspective. And it is very important to keep life in perspective for that.
Yes.
That actually, even on my darkest day, it's nowhere near as bad as an awful lot of people around the world.
Yeah. That's so true. So true.
What's your most important achievement so far, though? I mean, you've had a lot of successes. I'm just intrigued what you think that is, and kind of what's the direction of travel for Hardeep? Where do you still want to get to?
My greatest achievement is breaking the cycle. It's not the speaking career. It's not the music. It's me being able to stop the generational way of bringing up children and the, I don't know, it's the wrong word, but generational curse that's been going on. I've ended it. The way I raise my children has ended it. And that's my biggest accomplishment. The relationship I have with my children. Bob, I'm a great father, man. I got to tell you, I know I can't brag, but I'm going to say it to everyone listening. Due to my experience with my father, actually taking that and changing myself due to that experience have actually given my children a father who's much more attentive and caring and loving.
How old are your kids?
I have one, he just turned 5 last week, and a girl, she's 7. So they're raised with love and care, and yeah, that's my biggest accomplishment. And I hope to grow if I look into the future, I'm ambitious. There's so many things I would love to explore, and I want to take my speaking career even to new heights. I haven't spoken to the NBA yet or the Premier League. I've worked with a few Premier League. I can't say who, but I worked with a few Premier League players, not big names, but a few of them. But I would love to speak to a Premier League club or NBA club. So some of these dreams I still have, and I want to see, how much better can I become as a human being. I know there's still much more for me to learn.
And no doubt, as your kids get a bit older, they're going to be incredibly proud of you as well. Because
Thank you so much.
I'm sure that's the case. I mean, sadly, for every high, there is a low. I mean, it sounds like you had a few of those. But what is the kind of career low point?
Without a doubt, when the music hit rock bottom, there's no doubt. As I said in the beginning, that I came to a place where I didn't care about anything. I had no purpose. I felt empty within. I was physically and mentally not in a good place. So that was without a doubt. And I just want to say, just because I'm this successful, what do you call these? But I'm making these signs.
Quotation marks.
Quotation marks. This successful speaker, there's still times where doubt and fear is taking too much of my mental focus. And times also get tough now. There's no doubt about it. And being a parent and a husband and just managing life itself. So that's what I've learned. Even when you reach your dreams, you still have to deal with life.
Oh yeah. Life is full of small challenges, isn't it? I mean, they never quite stop. I'm not surprised to hear you say that. I think it's great that you did manage to change out of all of that, because that could easily have taken you into a very different place with where you've ended up. On a sort of slightly different and more positive note, I mean, you're a busy guy. You travel a lot. You're all over the place with what you do with speaking. As you say, you're a parent. You've got all the challenges that go with parenting and the opportunities that come with it as well. But in managing the very busy lives we all lead, how do you deal with work-life balance? I know some people don't like the term, but actually just de-stressing, relaxing. What do you do?
Well, first of all, I'm aware of time. Time is something that I'm very aware of, and what to spend my time on. So let's say that some people, they have a million things they want to do with the time they have. I only want to do 4 or 5 things. So I'm focused on my mental health, my emotional well-being, my family, my career, and my few good friends. That's it. That's what I allow to take up my time. So I'm able to focus on that. And I live a quite simple life. I walk a lot and I live close to nature. I live close to the water. So I'm able to get a lot of energy from nature. I love doing that. So even though my office is in central Copenhagen, I live in a place where there's a lot of nature. So I go for walks almost daily. I try to stay healthy, and I wake up early. I meditate, I relax my mind, I think positive thoughts, and I try to be thankful every morning, because I've learned that if I'm able to be thankful, I can't be negative. Mm-hmm. You cannot be thankful and negative at the same time. So which one, I'd rather be thankful. And thank you. I thank the universe for everything that I've gotten, the good and the bad. And I start my mornings with these kind of sessions, or I work with myself in the morning to prepare for the day. And then I'm a guy with routines. It's not, a lot of things don't happen with me just coincident. It's not a coincidence. My day is very structured, and it's not a lot of things that is allowed to take up my valuable time.
Yeah. Nice. No, I think the time point is so important, isn't it? I mean, you can't get it back for a start. There are only so many hours in a day. I was working with a guy a while ago who he was very clear. He said, if you turn around and look at any given day, there's maybe like 100 units of energy you've got. Yeah. In the 24-hour period, you haven't got 101. You need to think about how you deal with your 100. and how you're going to allocate them on a routine basis. And occasionally you might need to put more into something that you wouldn't normally do, but you need to have a plan for how you're going to do that. And I think that's a really good point, because too many people sometimes just kind of blunder through that and don't think about it.
Yeah. If you look at also, again, with the people that I feel I have something in common with, even though it's the first time we talk, like we spoke in Copenhagen, of course, but some things I just feel that I have in common with other people who live a certain lifestyle or have achieved or perform at a certain level. There's something that we have in common in this group of ours, and everybody's welcome. And it doesn't mean that we can't learn more, because I know the more I learn, the less I feel I know. So, I guess you can relate to that, right?
And I totally relate to that. I mean, interesting, again, because I facilitate a lot and I work with the same group of people a lot, particularly with the stuff I do at Deloitte University, where we see each other all the time. And one of the things that is so nice about that is you do learn all the time, and you learn, everyone's got a lot of experience, but all different experiences. And sometimes quite small things, sometimes quite big things that you go, oh, wow, okay, yeah, that's a bit of a light bulb moment for me. That really, really does, does give me a different perspective and something new that I can take into my own either life or work or focus or whatever, which I think is incredibly helpful if you can do that.
Yes, absolutely.
Just before we move, because it's a good segue actually into what I want to talk about, just before we move on to some more broader, wider world topics, but speaking specifically as a career and presenting, I mean, I touched on it earlier on. I think it's something that a lot of people find very challenging. And for leaders, one of the things I always say to them is, you've got to get comfortable with this. The reality is you're going to have to get used to talking to groups of people, running meetings. You may not be talking to big arenas full of 1,000 people, but you're going to have to deal with your own nerves, and your preparation has got to be important and all that sort of thing. So, I mean, I'd just be interested in top tips from you that you think you've taken along the way that would be helpful to other people in that regard, whether they're going into the kind of world of speaking or whether they're actually just living their daily life as a leader. Yeah,
I would say that when you want to present anything, first of all, be authentic. Now we talk as a presenter, but I also, when we talk about leaders, often my perspective is from the employee. A lot of times leaders want to tell other leaders how to present, but I'm looking at it from the employee, looking at the leader. Do I believe this person or not?
Mm-hmm.
Is this person just telling me this because they got to reach the budgets and this and that, or do they really care? The purpose-driven speech, this is the purpose. This is why we do what we do is very important. Let me tell you, Bob, when I have meetings with my clients before a speech, I ask them, what's your goal? What is your vision? And if they say a number, if they say we got to reach this budget, I'm like, you're not going to win your employees. You got to give me something stronger than that. You got to give me why you exist. Why is it you want to succeed? Why is it you have to go through this challenge, this pain, this struggle? Why is that? Have that in your mind when you speak to your team or your employees. Have it in the back of your mind why you do what you do, why you exist as a company. And I do the same with myself, that I remind myself why I do what I do. And it's an energy thing. Then it comes out with a different energy. If you just talk numbers, I've never heard employees tell me, I'm so inspired by my leader. He or she always tell us how much money we got to make. Nobody's going to be inspired by that.
But you're right.
Am I not right? Yeah.
Yeah. And I talk about management and leadership, because obviously the two often get confused in my view. I think, people think, okay, leaders need to manage, and leaders often do need to manage. That's fair enough.
Yes.
But, if I say to people, look, if you want one word definition for each one, management's about process for me. Leadership's about inspiration, to your point. It's about where are we going to go? Give me a vision, give me something to focus on. And if you don't have that as a leader, it's going to be really tough to keep people following you for a long. They might do it for a little bit out of curiosity.
Yes.
But they're not going to do it for the long term.
No, they're not. No. And that purpose-driven leadership, I think, it's so powerful. And then, of course, you're going to have some people in your team that's still not going to be inspired. You can also accept that. you must also accept that there's always going to be somebody, or most of the times there'll be someone in the crowd or in your team that's not really on board. But know with yourself, I'm doing my best, and I'm driven by our purpose. It matters to me. I think just by having that in the back of your mind before you present your message, whatever it might be, it gives you the energy that you need. And sometimes, there's this coach from Alabama State University. His name is Nick Saban. And when they go play a football game against other teams, he says, the ones who are ready to play the system and wants to win the game, get on the bus. But for all of you who do not, don't get on the bus.
Mm-hmm.
That's also difficult for leaders to say, but it's the truth. I haven't seen many. The purpose-driven companies that I've spoken to, I can feel it in the air. And when I speak to leaders that work in companies where they only worry about the numbers, they don't talk. The purpose doesn't matter to them. There's a different energy. There's a different drive, a different focus. So that's my advice, to have that purpose in the back of your mind before you even say your first word.
It's really helpful. And I think as well, some of the people you're describing in terms of where they're totally focused on the numbers, some of that is because they're focused too much on themselves.
Yes.
And they're not focused on the team and looking after the team and being, and growing the team almost in spite of what happens to them. And again, I think that's something that you need to be very aware of as a leader. If you want to be a good leader, you've got to take the team with you, and you've got to really be there for them. You've got to lead by example. You've got to be there, properly have enough humility to recognize when you're wrong. There's all sorts of different things we could talk about on traits and bits in there. But
and you can always find out. Let's say you're so focused on numbers, and you're focused on numbers because you are controlled by fear, the fear of failing. So you become so focused as a leader on your numbers, but and you forget your purpose. But then you have to spend some time focusing on why you do what you do. And let's say that it's hard for you to find your purpose. Then remind yourself, what is it that we do? Why do we exist? Why is it that we are even able to exist? What is it that we deliver that is so useful to other people? Remind yourself of that. Make that a daily. We call it sadhana. In India, it's like daily practice. Make it a daily practice to remind yourself. And over time, the people who follow you are going to see you, feel that energy from you, because you're focused on it now. Because as we said before, the employees that know that the leaders is only focused on numbers, they're not inspiring.
Yeah, no, so again, great points. I often talk about, for me, I had two criteria all the way through my military career, particularly, but I've held that on beyond my military career. And enjoying what I do is number one. If I'm not enjoying it, I need to stop, to find a way to enjoy it and find a way to do something else. But the other one, which is kind of playing to this leadership point, is and being authentic, is looking in the mirror and liking my reflection. And I found it, as I got increasingly senior in the military, I found that more and more challenging, that you're having to effectively sell the Kool-Aid to people that you didn't want to drink it yourself.
Yeah.
There's stuff that you're having to implement.
Yes.
And that, I think that's trouble. That is a challenge for all sorts of leaders in all sorts of organizations, even ones that right at the top of the organization sometimes, where they've got to take some difficult decisions or implement some policies that they actually don't believe in themselves.
Yeah.
And that's very hard, because it's really, people see through that. Inevitably, they see through that.
Yeah. So true. So true.
Just a sort of a music question before I shift on a bit. I suspect we're in the same place here. I've spoken to some quite big audiences over the years, and I've had some tough crowds and some great crowds. In terms of what you get, what's the most challenging audience you've ever worked with?
Inner city hoodlums, the thugs, the people who've been to jail and lost purpose in life. The only thing they know is to hang out with other people who are not in a good place. I've tried that, but I've never lost the crowd. I have to tell you, I've had gang members in the crowd who thought I was a gang member, and they didn't listen for half an hour until I spoke about their mothers. And then everything in the room changed, of how their lifestyle is hurting their mothers. And I've seen them start crying, hugging me, taking pictures with me afterwards. But these have been the crowds. And that's what I love about my career, is that I speak to all people, young, old, any religion, any color, any status in life, street people, very high level executives. I love speaking to all of them. And the most amazing thing that I've discovered is that we have so much in common. And you know this, Bob. I know you know exactly what I mean by that. The fear, the doubt, the pressure. We all understand it. We are not alone with our problems. If we really just talk to someone, we would discover that every human being can relate. Even the street thug and the executive have something in common, believe it or not. But that has been the toughest crowds. But also when I walk into a crowd and I see their arms crossed and they're like, "Who's this guy?" I'm like, "Okay, this is a good test for me. I'm excited. Let me see."
I'm like that. I like the challenge.
Yes.
If I go in, whether it's a small group or a big group, if you kind of go, right, it's a hostile crowd here, and as long as they're not throwing things at you on the stage, then that's a bit too far. But
so right.
I think it's a good challenge if you're going through that.
Yeah, because as speakers, then we have to deliver a perspective that they find interesting or important or that matters to them.
Yeah.
It's our job. It's not their job. It's our job to go to where they are.
Got to make it relatable. Yeah, absolutely.
The speakers that are not good, they do the same every time. The speakers like you and me, we try to see who are we talking to, who's in the crowd, and then try to create this connection first, and then they're going to be open to the message.
Yeah, no, it's nice. Know your audience is it's a key thing, isn't it? On all that. I tend to talk quite a lot on these podcast interviews with lots of different people from lots of different backgrounds, and I always try and dive into their kind of area of their expertise about specific things. I mean, you and I are doing very similar things in slightly different ways, probably, but I'd just be interested in your perspective because there's some topics that keep coming up for me, and we've touched on a couple of these things around mental health and things already, but intergenerational working is one that for sure I think is where a lot of organizations are finding it really challenging now with youngsters in the workplace who have quite a different approach. They've come through COVID. They've had all those kind of challenges. They've got a different mindset anyway. We talked about attention spans. I listened to a hilarious thing recently where they talk about Gen Z with average attention spans 8 seconds. And you kind of go, that's quite hard to work with. But hybrid versus office, the dynamics around that, getting people in so you can actually get the team to work. AI, you mentioned AI earlier on. Sustainability, we haven't touched on, but all these things are features that are now appearing. And I'm just wondering what your take is, because you're clearly working with a very diverse set of groups of people, and you must have a view on lots of these things as to where society as a whole is kind of most challenged at the moment, and what you're hearing.
Yeah. What I'm hearing in regards to the younger generation is that, and I'll talk about Gen Z and the youngsters the young people that come into the workforce, is that it's difficult to hold on to them. If you cannot offer them growth, if they can't see themselves growing or being presented to opportunities for growth or, going higher in the company, a lot of them don't hang around for too long. Then they're on to the next. So they're not as dedicated as the older generation. They don't have that, in Denmark, I would say the average time being in a workplace now is maybe 5 years.
Yeah.
And I think the youngers, I'm talking 2-3 years, they're out of there. Where you have like my father's generation or, they would hang around for their whole life. They would start there and finish at the same company. But with this new generation of people, of employees and stuff, they want to be offered opportunity. They want to be able to see themselves grow and learn. And so the leaders must have the ability to talk into their visions. And it's almost like it's changed, like at a job interview. It's almost, what can you do for me?
Yeah. That's a great point. I think I've heard the same thing.
Yeah. So that's what I hear the most, I would say, is they're not afraid of trying something new. That's the older generation's challenges. They would rather just keep doing what they've done for the last 15, 20 years and not change anything. But when we look at the younger generation, they're much more open to trying new things and AI and all this because it's more natural. They grew up with it. some of us, we've been shocked with what's going on, but some are just growing up with a phone in their hand and all kind of technology. So that's the challenges maybe with the older generation is making them try something new.
Mm. Yeah. And no, that's again interesting point. And again, on the AI front specifically,
Yeah.
I agree with you totally. I mean, one of the things that I've talked about quite a bit with people is if you're not. I mean, I'm kind of in the twilight of my career now for sure, and yet I'm very aware that I do need to try and stay at least vaguely on top of what's happening with AI in particular and where it's going, what it's capable of. Experiment with it, try it out. Because if you're being led by the people behind you as opposed to you leading them and coming up with ideas, again you're abrogating responsibility as a leader, and that's not a great place to be for sure.
Correct. Yeah. Yes.
Fascinating. Hey, there's two questions I always ask in these things, and the first one of those is, what's the most memorable event of your career so far?
Of my career, it's when I traveled to Istanbul in Turkey. And it was my first major speech I gave to the fourth largest company in the world at that time. They had 520,000 employees at the time, and they flew in over 400 global leaders to Istanbul, Turkey. I had never spoken to a big company at that size, and they asked me, Hardeep, would you come and be the keynote speaker? And I went there. Business class, didn't fly business class, so I thought that seat was for me and two other people supposed to sit next to me. I come to this luxury hotel and I didn't sleep all night. I was so nervous. I didn't sleep for 1 minute. And next day I went on stage and I delivered a very powerful speech. And the global CEO at that time, he gave me a hug when I had delivered my speech, and they told me that they had never seen him hug another human being before. So I knew, so that was an incredible experience. And it took me to the next level. It made me understand that I belong. Do I belong at this level? That moment for me made me believe that I could take on any challenge in the speaking industry.
Nice. It's funny how little moments like that do make that kind of difference, isn't it?
Yes,
what a great story. That's definitely a really memorable event.
Yeah.
And my very last question then is, what's the most difficult question you've ever been asked?
Oh, that's a good one. I think the questions that I ask myself, what is it about me that is not positive? What is not good for me or my family or the people around me? What is it about me that I have to change? I think that question is so uncomfortable, but it's necessary. And it can be so hurtful when you discover something about yourself that is unpleasant. But that is the most difficult, toughest question. And I still ask it to myself once in a while when I find that someone is maybe accusing me or have an opinion about me, or I am sensing that I am not experiencing growth. Then I ask what is it, Hardeep, about you right now? You got to look, I have to look at that truth. And that's unpleasant. That's uncomfortable questions, but it's necessary.
Nice. That's another great answer. I knew it was going to be a terrific conversation, Hardeep. It's been fantastic. Thank you very much. So many great insights and such fun. So no, I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Bob. And I just want to tell you, I'm very honored to be a guest in your show, and I'm very inspired by you. So thank you so much.
Yeah, that's really kind. Thank you very much. I wish you every success and ongoing success, and hope to see you again soon. Take care.
Likewise. Thank you.
Bye-bye. If you enjoy Leading for Life stories, please share it with your friends on social media. Let's see if we can get a bigger audience to benefit from the fantastic set of guests that I've had and been fortunate enough to be able to interview. And hopefully they'll get some benefit from some of my witterings as well on the tales that I provide. But also, if you actually get value from the podcast, if you really feel that it's benefiting you properly, then please consider supporting me and going to www.patreon.com/leading4life and sponsoring the show by becoming a supporter or a champion or a patron of the podcast. Your support would mean an awful lot to me, and it would really, really help me with the costs of setting up and running the show, and enabling me to keep going and keep doing this thing for the benefit of all those that listen to it. So please do think about that. I would really, really appreciate it. And if you do nothing else, please just give me a review and subscribe for future episodes. But I'm enormously grateful to you for listening. Thank you ever so much as always, and I'll see you soon. Bye.